Hey guys, let's have a look at Deep River. The version that we've done in the Ballad Songs and Vignettes is different than the other pieces in that same playlist. The primary reason is that almost all of the other pieces in the BSV playlist are pieces that I play through, firstly as a solo piano piece, and then in those pieces where it's a song where there's lyrics and we have our Destiny singing. We do a second cycle of the piece, but in that second cycle I'm playing more of an accompaniment style, and that's what we've been doing in this behind the scenes playlist, having a look at what is it that I'm actually doing to accompany Destiny, because I'm not just playing the song and she's singing along with it. Deep River's different, one because it's a larger piece of music. We present this piece in level 4, a simple version, which was the original version that I created, and then in level 14 we present a far more robust arrangement of the piece. And it's that more robust arrangement that I've built the accompaniment to in the Ballad Songs and Vignettes rendition that I do. So for those of you who have students or who are up to level 14 yourselves, you'll be able to just follow along with the music notation from level 14, because pretty much all I do is I just draw from that to give me the accompaniment foundation. For those of you that are not there, I'll talk about it. I'll give you an understanding of what I'm doing, at least enough so that you can be working with it. And the accompaniment version that I'm showing you still will work alongside any student who's learned the piece of music, because the melody doesn't alter. It's the same thing. That whole melody falls within an interval of a fifth. There are instances where we shift the octave, but the original score doesn't include that. So it should be pretty straightforward when it comes to working with it. So before we do that, let's hop over to the Ballad Songs Vignettes version with Destiny singing. We'll check that out. You can have a look at what I'm doing, and then we'll come back and break it down.
Deep river flows, nobody watching her. Deep river, nobody seems to care. Deep river knows what she has to do. Deep river, nobody seems to care. Move on slowly, let your river flow gently, flowing river. Still water flows, nobody watching her. Deep river, somebody somewhere knows.
Okay, let's have a look at what I'm doing. And for now, I'm going to assume that those of you that are at level 14 have got the notation in front of you. So I'll also break this up into segments. So we've got the original, the introduction. And essentially what I'm doing, if you look at the notation, I'm just borrowing from the first couple of measures. We've got that. That concept of if you look at what I'm doing here, I've just got my fifth in A, and I'm playing an A minor chord, and then I'm just bringing this down to a G. And really, even though we could say, well, what are we working with here? Are we really working with an A, 9, 11, or from a tonality point of view, I think of this as a G over A. That's the tonality, and that works to think of it that way. So essentially, we're just going from our A minor to our G, keeping the same left hand. What happens then is we go into the melody of the song. And when we do that, we're using this common embellishment that I work with, where I'm sort of running up the octave with the fifth and up to the first 3 notes of the scale. In this instance, we're working with, our minor chord. When we work down to, with the G or down the F, the concept remains the same. From a playing-based perspective, it's really easy to show your students that. And to move it down to the G, the same thing, because we're not really shifting key. We're playing within the key signature completely. So that's really straightforward. And that's the basis of what we do when the vocal begins. Deep river flows, nobody watching her. Deep river, nobody seems to care. Now I'm doing the same thing here as I did in the introduction, the difference being that in the introduction we had our A in the bass, now we have our F in the bass. So we could still think of it, if you wanted to, in terms of an A minor to a G chord with the F in the bass. And for your beginning students, that's probably the simplest way to think about it. As distinct from the introductory chords, exactly the same right hand, but a different left hand. It sounds really nice. It's really nice, a really nice modulation between the 2 renditions going back and forth. In fact, there's no question that would be a really interesting compositional project with your students, to give them this as a basis. And then the same thing with the F on the bass. Having your students just compose a melody just around that chord progression would be really sweet. So that really takes us through the first cycle of the lyrics. We've completed measure 10. We come now into measure number 11, and we come back to the melody. Now, what I'm doing, the melody here, deep river knows what she has to do. Deep river, nobody seems to care. That's the melody. What I'm doing in my left hand is I'm borrowing what I'm doing with the accompaniment to this, I'm borrowing from the left hand of the level 14 version, and that's all I'm doing. So it's going. I love the tension of that, where we've got that. Really, really rich. The melody's happening over that. Deep river knows what she has to do. It's quite straightforward, and me playing and singing that, it's out of my range at any rate. Even though, as good a singer as I am, and everyone knows that, even so, there are some things vocally that I can't do, and one of them is sing. So it doesn't make any difference. I love the tension of that. Adding the melody in. That whole section there, I think it's so interesting and so rich. And pretty much what I'm doing, I'm taking just the left hand that's in the more advanced version, playing this cycle through. Ba 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 ba, 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 ba. What happens then in the left hand, those of you that have the notation, I'm just doing exactly what's there, but if you have a look at overhead, so much tension in that chord. It's really, really rich. So have a look at the notes, what I'm playing. I'm coming from the A to the E. Here we've got our G flat, our A flat, up to the D. That little, you don't need to do that embellishment if your students aren't ready for that. And at any rate, it won't be your beginning students necessarily who are doing this. It's more advanced than it needs to be. And it's not that they can't do that. It's just when these pieces are more advanced, it takes so much longer to learn them. And they get so immersed in these longer pieces of music that it actually disrupts the momentum of being able to have that cycle of commencement, momentum and completion. There's a neurochemical benefit to having that cycle be complete. The excitement of commencement, the adrenaline that it takes to sustain momentum, and then that oxy quality when you have that feeling of completion, like success. So one of the things that's really important in our program is, one of the reasons why so many of our pieces are so short, is that it allows for the completion of that entire neurochemical cycle, which is a really important thing for the students' neurochemistry, for their actual experience of themselves, as well as impacting that cognitive load, their belief in their ability to progress and move forward. So I'm not really digressing, because this is an important point. When we're working with these more complex pieces, you really want to make sure that you're working with the student where this is seriously developmentally appropriate. Nothing complicated about that. So we come out of that section that we just did. Into the deep river nobody seems to care. Back to our chords, the same chords that we started with in the intro, same as in the previous section with the F on the bass, and now we're on the F on the bass again. Okay, so we're at measure number 19. What happens when we are working with that, also marrying with the lyrics where it's talking about moving on slowly, we're going to marry that concept, running up our broken octave with the first three notes up top. I pick up the melody a little bit here. So have a look at what I'm doing. And I would just be replicating that. You can just look at what I'm doing and just copying it. So, running up the three notes into measure 20. Our melody is "Let Your River Flow." It repeats the same process. And now we go back to our chord system that we were employing earlier. Now it's going to be a G and an inversion, an F and an inversion, a G and an inversion. So clearly all I'm doing, I'm just taking my F chord and I'm moving it down to our second inversion. I'm taking my G chord, moving it down to the second inversion. Really straightforward. Nothing complex about it at all. It's just content to process and work through. In both instances, I'm working with F in my bass. So we can think of this in terms of our F chord. Here, I'm thinking this as a G, and the tonality also suggests this is the G over F. We could even move it up to the A. That's also a compositional opportunity. Really rich. In this arrangement version, I'm just working between the F and the G. Now, what happens when we come back, we're on the home run now, when we come back into the last section, we're talking about measure number 27. I'm going to work with a familiar chordal approach. I'm going to take my A minor chord, I'm going to add my B, and I'm going to rock. I'm going to move the same thing, same shape down to the G. Same shape down to the F. So I've got that. Picking up the melody note, marching, harmonising it. Really pretty to have those chords. Now this is the one section of the piece where I actually play and stay with the melody. Destiny's taken all of the vocals up an octave, and when we get to this last section, I'm going to be playing. I'm playing the actual melody. That's the same melody as what we present to our beginning students in level number 4. It's just that it's an octave, well, a couple of octaves higher, and I'm playing it as an octave. What's happening with my left hand? Finishing with an F octave and an A, and then I'm doing our little 5-note spread, 5 steps of sound. Except I'm sort of just glissandoing it all. Sloppy. I've actually never been able to get it all that crisp. And all of you players that have got far better technique than me, which is most of you, you'll be able to execute that more crisply and cleanly. But basically, that's the piece. That's how it works. I don't even think this is a particularly... I mean, if there was a more professional pianist that was playing the arrangement and accompaniment to the vocalist, they'd have a more simplified and a cleaner accompaniment arrangement of this. Mine, I'm wanting to make sure that I borrow as much as possible from what it is that the students are going to learn so that we can capitalise on inheriting and at the same point of time, you know, that's really just my expertise level too that plays a role in all of that. But anyway, there's a bit of what's going on in the background with Deep River. See you guys.